Hall of Fame game last week, and Hard Knocks came out on, what was that, Thursday? Or no, Tuesday, I think. Jets joint practice with Carolina, the second preseason game. These are all things we've seen. The Jets have been very, very much in the public eye so far this offseason. And I know they're just preseason games, I know they're practices, but given all the access that we've had to the Jets and Aaron and the games and everything like that, I've had two primary conclusions, one leading to a third as well. One, I think the defense will still be very good. I'm not sure if it's going to be top 3 again, but I certainly believe that they are at worst top 7 or 8. I mean, and that's expected. Saul is a defensive coach, really good front 4, excellent corners, and they're good enough at linebacker and safety, which we've seen over the last couple of years hasn't been quite as important as fronts and DBs. But the second takeaway, and I think the more important one, is I absolutely do not buy the argument this is a 10-win team and a contender. I don't see it so far. And I know that it's preseason, I know that it's joint practices, but there's things that I don't think are fixable. And I'll get to it later, but Dwayne Brown, for example, is in year 50 at this point, and he's already hurt, right? So there's those type of things. I think there is a chance, albeit slim, that they get into the playoffs, though. I think it's a bottom 5 offensive line. I think that's the main concern. I mean, Mekhi Becton had to leave the Hall of Fame game because the turf wasn't great. Dude, I got news for you. I got your schedule pulled up right here. Let's see. Cowboys, that's going to be turf. Your home field's turf. The Patriots is turf. Now, Denver and I think Kansas City are grass. The Giants is turf. The Raiders is grass. Bills is turf. Like, you have, 10, 11 games on turf this year. You can't just not play in 10 or 11 games. You're a right tackle. You're a first-round pick. You're actually supposed to be the left tackle. Ideally, you'd be playing left tackle right now. Like, you got to put on your big boy pants. You got to play. And you got to play well. And then Dwayne Brown, like I mentioned, I don't even know. I think it's 16, 17, 18 for him. He's already hurt. And generally speaking, big, old bodies in a contact sport, they're not going to get healthier as the season goes on. Hey, Dwayne, go get in a car accident, basically, every Sunday for 16 weeks and see if you feel good. Like, he's not going to get more healthy as the season goes on, and he's already hurt. I mean, look at the rankings for offensive lines and who else is down there. It's a bottom 5 to 10 offensive line. Who else is down there? I don't know, a lot of, non-playoff teams. Tennessee, Houston, Washington, the Rams, who I'm higher on, but still that's concerning for them as well. They missed the playoffs. The Cardinals, the Giants, who everybody expects to kind of take a step backwards and miss the playoffs this year. Like, that's not the region you want to be. Or you look at the top, it's like the Chiefs and the Cowboys. And I'm not even a huge believer of the Cowboys, but they're still going to be a top 10 team. Philadelphia is up there. Like, that's where you want to be. San Francisco. So now what does this lead to? Right, so offensive line is bad. What does that mean? Well, I appreciate you asking. We saw it in full at that joint practice against Carolina. Aaron Rodgers having 3 and outs on 2-minute drills. Not just, hey, couple first downs, drive stalled. You're telling me 3 and out in a joint practice with a very talented wide receiver group could not get a first down. He was visibly discouraged and pissed off afterwards in his little press conference with the performance of the offensive line and the offense as a whole. And I know it's only 2 preseason games and some practices. Yes, I would agree with that, but we also do realize the season starts in less than a month. Like, we have about 3 weeks until Aaron and that unit suits up against Buffalo. Like, welcome to New York. Primetime standalone game, great pass rush. Like, that is 3 to 3.5 weeks away. Like, there's a chance that gets very prickly. Like, these are things that I don't think are fixable in 3 weeks. Like, Mekhi Becton's not going to figure out how to play on turf or on grass. Like, he's not just going to magically figure out how to be good in the NFL. Dwayne Brown, as an old player, is not going to instantly get healthy. Like, that's not how it works. Right? You look at their schedule, there is a very real chance they could be in some... They could step in it big time, right? You have Buffalo in the opener, like we discussed. Then you go to Micah Parsons and company. You have New England in that defense, which, by the way, you haven't beat them in 7 years. I want to throw that out there. 0-14. Then you have the Chiefs and Mahomes, who, first of all, they don't lose in the first 4 games, like, ever. They have, 1 loss in the first month of the season. And they'll most likely have Chris Jones, who's a top 3 interior defensive lineman. Denver, whose defense is likely top 10. Philadelphia with that front. The Giants with their front, which is the strength of their team. Khalil Mack and the Chargers. The Raiders with Max Crosby and Chandler Jones, who've had the most sacks, since 2014. Chandler Jones. The Bills again. The Dolphins with Bradley Chubb. Great new defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. Like, you don't get a break until after that with like Atlanta in week, what is that, like 11 at that point? And that's not even a total cakewalk. Grady Jarrett's a handful. Look, we have our AFC predictions next week, and we'll get more and more in depth with this. But I cannot see this going very well, especially early season. There are a ton of landmines, and I just don't foresee that offensive line and an aging Aaron Rodgers to be able to pick up that type of slack. I just don't think it's going to work. They seem about 500 at best. I don't think they're a 10-win team. I don't view them as a contender. I barely view them as a playoff team. It's concerning to say the least. We know the games are won in the trenches, and they're not very good up front at all.
Yeah. One of the main things that you just touched on right at the end is the biggest thing to me, I think. The aging Aaron Rodgers playing with a bad offensive line, I think that could spell trouble in a lot of different places. Obviously, just the morale between the two and Aaron's attitude towards the offensive line, but I also think that you have to call a spade a spade. You have to say what it is. Aaron Rodgers is an older quarterback,
and he doesn't move as much as he did.
Generally speaking, you are becoming more and more injury prone every single season you play, and if this is going to be the season where you get hit the most,
that's a problem.
That's a big problem.
And now, to Aaron's credit, I feel like, he was in the league 3 years before he started, so he's he's a younger, whatever he is, 38 or whatever. But at the end of the day,
38's
38's 38, and also yes, he's younger, but it's like he's had 2 or 3 collarbone surgeries. Like, these are things that it just doesn't.
They compound on each other.
He moves less and less each year, and you could tell it's because he doesn't want to get outside the pocket and take those hits.
Yeah, and I think one thing that people just forget about is once the NFL season starts rolling, once you start getting into actual regular season games, it's really hard to make big changes and big adjustments. So, I mean, if it's not looking like it's coming together now, I feel like everybody goes into a lull a little bit during the off season because it's so long and you don't have football for a while, and there's a lot of changes being made and a lot of time to fix it. Hey, we're looking at week 2 of the preseason now, right? We have one more preseason game left, and then we are right into the season.
Also, another point. Aaron's never been, again, yes, he's a young 38. I know he's never been viewed as somebody who's a Brady level, take care of his body in the offseason. Right?
Yeah.
He's going and doing hikes in the rainforest. That's, and I'm not saying he's not fit and he's not, capable of being professional athlete level fit, but it's he's not this guy who's obsessive over his body. A couple hits could ding him big time.
Yeah, I agree. All right, guys.